Hello and welcome to Tetch Football. I'm George and today I'll be doing my Premier League Match Week 3 predictions, and in this video, because we haven't had the chance to meet up recently, I'll also be going over Ryan's, Tom's and Joe's predictions as well. Let's get into it. Alright, and just before we start talking about the games, I'm gonna tell you the updated scores after last weekend's match results. And Joe is now on 18 points, leading the way. We have Ryan on 15, not too far behind. We have Tom on 14, and I've just managed to get myself up to double digits with 10 points. So a bit disappointing for me still, but I got up a bit, and hopefully one of us can catch Joe, who did really well last week. Okay, and the first game of this weekend is Wolves versus Tottenham, and I'm going to go through the others' predictions first. And Joe, our Tottenham fan, has predicted 1-0 for Tottenham, and I think that's pretty fair, to be honest. You can probably see either one of the Tottenham defenders scoring from a corner, or a Kane or Son late goal, or something like that to give Tottenham a 1-0 win against a very defensive solid unit, so I can see where he's coming from with that. Then I'll move on to Tom, who has predicted a 2-0 Tottenham win, which I think is also fair. I can see a lethal attack that Tottenham has with Kane, Son, Kulusevski breaking down that Wolves defence. So yeah, I can definitely see that happening. That's a decent prediction from Tom. But then Ryan, I think, has been very disrespectful to Wolves here. Shame on him. He's predicted 3-0 Tottenham. He has not backed that Wolves back line at all. He's completely gone against them, thinks that Tottenham will run ragged and score like 3 goals, which I think is personally a bit of an insult to Wolves, but we'll have to see what happens. And then that means that my prediction for Wolves versus Tottenham, I think I'm going to agree with Tom, 2-0 to Tottenham. And honestly, this is because Wolves at the moment, they lost Cody, and they're just like, there's not too much positivity around that club at the moment. They could lose Neves, he's been linked to leaving, but they don't look as solid at the back as they used to be in their new system. But I think that'll improve as they learn to play with their new centre-back pairing of Kilman and Collins. But I just think it's the attack for Wolves that's the problem, especially after selling Morgan Gibbs-White to Nottingham Forest, and I think it could really affect them. They definitely need to bring in some attackers and get a good system where their defence can perform, because otherwise they're in trouble. But yeah, overall 2-0 to Wolves. And then the next fixture is Crystal Palace versus Villa. And Joe has predicted a 2-0 win for Villa, and I can agree with that. I think Villa are definitely decent defensively and should be able to hold off the Palace attack if they play well. And yeah, I think 2-0 is reasonable. You can see Watkins, Buendia, Ings, Coutinho, Villa have attacking options that can easily bag them 2 goals against the Palace defence. And Tom's prediction is a 1-1 game between Palace and Villa, and I honestly agree with that. It's pretty fair, really. Like, both are good, decent teams. They work well as a team, and I think they're both solid units, but they have a couple players that can get forward. Palace have Zaha, Elise, Eze. Villa have Coutinho, Ings, like Watkins. There's so many players for both those teams that could score while both being decent defensive units. So I think a draw is a fair result, and that leaves Brian's prediction of 2-1 to Villa, and I think that's also a pretty fair prediction. I think you could argue Villa are definitely the better side, or maybe not definitely, but I think they are just about better. But like I said, with the others, you can see players like Coutinho, Ings, Watkins. They could all easily get themselves on the score sheet. You've got Buendia to throw in the mix as well. Villa have a lot of quality players that could score, so I think they could easily get some positive result of that Palace game. Obviously, he has predicted Palace to get a goal, so players like Zaha, Eze, Elise, all quality players. So I think it could be a really interesting game and definitely one to watch this weekend. However, that means that my prediction, I think I'm going to agree with Joe and go 2-0 to Villa. I think Villa just overall, a better team, really. I think they're slightly better offensively. I think they've got a better midfield, and also I think that they're slightly better at the back. And especially with Emi Martinez in goal, I don't see them conceding. So I think overall, Villa will win 2-0, and I agree with Joe on that one. The next game of the weekend is Everton versus Nottingham Forest. Obviously, Nottingham Forest picked up their first win in the Premier League last weekend. Everton still haven't won a game, and Joe for this game has predicted 0-0, so thinks it's going to be quite a boring game by the looks of it, even though Nottingham Forest showed very good offensive play against West Ham. He still seems to think that they won't be able to break down the Everton back line, and also thinks that Forest are solid enough at the back that Everton won't score, and overall doesn't seem like he believes either team will show much in that game, so he's gone for a 0-0 draw. And then Tom's prediction for this is a Nottingham Forest 1-0 win, and I think that's a solid prediction because Nottingham Forest showed some brilliant attacking intent against West Ham. I think West Ham were unlucky in that game, but Everton are arguably quite a lot worse than West Ham right now, so I think Nottingham Forest can make this a 1-0 win quite easily, so I think that's pretty fair from Tom. And then Ryan has predicted a 2-0 Everton win. Surprisingly, that is kind of out of the blue. I think he's really underrated Nottingham Forest there, especially now they've brought in Morgan Gibbs-White. I'm not sure if he knew that when he was making this prediction. And I can see his reasoning for Everton to keep a clean sheet, obviously after bringing in Conor Cody, a quality English centre-back, but I still think the rest of their defence is a bit of a car crash, really. They're an accident waiting to happen. So I don't think there's really too much argument for a clean sheet for them, especially if they're going to score 2 at the other end, because they still don't have a Calvert-Lewin. They haven't brought in another striker. Anthony Gordon's got rumours to leave the club, and I don't personally believe he's got enough end product anyway. And you just don't see anyone able to score the goals for Everton at the moment. So I think 2-0 is a bit out there, but he would look like a genius if it happened. But this does move me on to my prediction, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 Nottingham Forest win. I think Iwanui was brilliant against West Ham. Nico Williams as well. I think he'll get an assist. I think Iwanui will score, and the new boy Morgan Gibbs-White on his debut. I think he's a promising English midfielder, and he could do really well in Steve Cooper's Nottingham Forest system, especially after working with him at Swansea before. So yeah, I think 2-1 Nottingham Forest with... I know I say he doesn't have much end product, but I think this will be one of the rare games where Anthony Gordon contributes and will get a goal against Nottingham Forest. But then the next game of the weekend is Fulham versus Brentford. Obviously Brentford, a brilliant 4-0 result against United. I absolutely love that as a Liverpool fan. United just looked rubbish. That first half was awful. Obviously second half they managed to kill the game and not utterly embarrass themselves if they hadn't already. But for the next game, Fulham versus Brentford. Fulham actually surprisingly a bigger challenge than United for Brentford, and Joe has predicted a 2-1 Brentford win, and I think that's pretty fair. Brentford obviously on fire at the moment. They're playing really well. Fulham, after starting really well against Liverpool, 2-2 draw, they stumbled at Wolves. Their confidence seemed to kind of dissipate at the end of that game, so I'm not too sure what's going to happen with them. And yeah, I think 2-1 is a fair result because Brentford definitely have more attacking threat, but someone like Mitrovic could easily dominate the Brentford back line. And then Tom has predicted a 2-0 Brentford win, surprisingly. He hasn't backed them to score at all. He's supporting that Brentford defence, who obviously look very good against United, very solid. Ben Mee looks like a class signing, so... No, yeah, I agree with Tom. I think my prediction would also be 2-0 for this game, but we'll get on to that after I talk about Ryan's prediction, who's gone 3-0 Brentford. Now, he's obviously very impressed by that huge 4-0 win at Old Trafford. I think it was on, I can't remember what stadium it was at, but still, 4-0 for Brentford against United. Ryan obviously very impressed by that, and he's gone for 3-0 against Fulham. And I think realistically, if Brentford can beat United 4-0, they should be able to beat Fulham 3-0, but Marco Silva will obviously pinpoint this as a big game for them to get points to keep them up. So I think the Fulham squad will be up for this game, and I think they'll show up a bit more fight than losing 3-0. But I think, just like Tom said, it will end 2-0 to Brentford. They just look too good at the moment. That midfield without Eriksen is still doing really, really well, and they seem to be just working really well as a team, and they want to win games this season. So I think, yeah, overall it will end 2-0 to Brentford. And the next game I'm going to talk about in this round of Premier League fixtures is Leicester versus Southampton. And first up, Joe has predicted a 1-1 draw between the two teams. Obviously, Southampton had an impressive comeback against Leeds to get the 2 goals back and draw 2-2. So obviously they're going to have quite a lot of confidence at the moment. They'll believe they can score against teams, but they do clearly have to sort out that defence. And, well, the same with Leicester really. They had to sort out their defence with Schmeichel leaving and links to Fofana leaving. If that happens, I think they'll be in big trouble, because Sancho isn't good enough. Evans to get injured, and is he really the top level centre-back Leicester leads? You don't really know. So I think Leicester definitely needs some investment, being one of the only clubs to not sign anybody in like the top 5 leagues. I think they really need some investment, so 1-1 draw Southampton is a very realistic result, especially after their 2-2 with Leeds last weekend. So I think that's a fair prediction from Joe. And then Tom has predicted 2-1 to Leicester, and I think that's fair. Leicester still have better quality players, especially in offence against that arguably leaky Southampton backline. Obviously players like Barnes and Vardy, Iheanacho, Daka, they can all score goals for Leicester, so I think 2-1 is fair, because like I already stated, Leicester's defence is a bit shaky at the moment, especially after losing Schmeichel. I don't think Danny Ward is good enough to be a Premier League goalkeeper. He's definitely a very good backup option, but I think 2-1 is probably the best out of these predictions, because Ryan has also predicted 1-1, same as Joe. Same reasoning there. Just think they're both sort of leaky defences, but they're both pretty good going forward, and Southampton also have the confidence right now, so I think 1-1 is fair. But I think I'm going to go for a shock 1-0 Southampton win, because Leicester, they're just not turning up at the moment. They're not performing right now, especially after losing Schmeichel. It's obviously impacted the dressing room, and I think after that comeback last weekend, Southampton will definitely be up for it, and I think, yeah, it'll end 1-0 to Southampton, a shock, late, smash and grab win. Something that Vardy's done to a lot of teams before, and he's about to get a taste of his own medicine. But the next game of the weekend is Bournemouth versus Arsenal, and obviously I think they've all predicted a 3-0 Arsenal win for this game. They're obviously very confident in their Arsenal team, even after their impressive 2-0 win against Villa on the opening day. Bournemouth vended and go get destroyed by City 4-0 in the next game. So don't know too much about that squad yet, really. There's some interesting players in there, but I think 3-0, they've all gone for, they've all predicted 3-0 for this, is probably pretty accurate, because it's just, Arsenal are just on form at the moment, aren't they? Jesus obviously banging them in. Martinelli's doing really well. Even Xhaka got a goal and assist last weekend. So that whole team's playing well. They clearly believe in Arteta and the project. So I do genuinely think that Arsenal are probably the 3rd best team in the league, at least at the moment, behind Liverpool and City, especially man for man in their squad after bringing in a player like Zinchenko for squad depth. Like, Arsenal is it's a very exciting project going on there. They're not one of the top teams yet up the level of City and Liverpool, but I definitely think they can be, especially for their big City rivals like Tottenham and Chelsea. But we'll have to see where those 3 all end up at the end of the season. But yeah, they've all gone 3-0. I imagine they think Jesus is going to score again. He is on fire, and I think, yeah, I'm going to agree with them. I'm going to join the 3-0 prediction for Arsenal to beat Bournemouth. I think Jesus will score. I reckon Saka will get on the score sheet, and also Martinelli. I think Arsenal just too good for a team like Bournemouth at the moment, so I think Bournemouth are just going to have to focus on other fixtures where they'll be able to pick up more points and hopefully not get relegated. We'll have to see how that turns out for them, but yeah, I think it's a no-brainer for Arsenal to win that game. It will be a massive shock if Bournemouth beat them, so 3-0 Arsenal is the final prediction. The next game of the weekend is Leeds versus Chelsea, and obviously Chelsea and Tottenham had a fiery draw last weekend. I see that the other 3 have predicted Chelsea to bounce back quite well. Joe has predicted a 5-2 for Chelsea, so he thinks that Chelsea might let a few goals in, and although Leeds defence has been completely voted against here, so I think the 5-2, it could be reasonable, but I think that's a little disrespectful to Jesse Marsh's system at Leeds. I think they're doing quite well for themselves at the moment. I think other people maybe expected them to do a bit worse this season, although some people did expect them to do really well. So I think 5-2, if that happens, that'll be a very good game to watch as a Chelsea fan. But I think overall that could be a really good shout, but I think it's a bit unfair on Leeds. But then Tom has predicted 3-1. I think that's a bit more of a fair result, a bit more realistic. Chelsea don't really score too many goals, but they're very good at the back. So maybe they won't concede, maybe they'll only let one in. But I think overall that's a pretty good prediction from Tom. I think Chelsea are definitely the better team, easily over Leeds. And I think scoring 3 past them is quite realistic. And maybe letting one in is a bit harsh on the Chelsea backline, I'm not sure. But then our Chelsea fan here has been very harsh to Leeds, I think. He has gone for a 4-0 Chelsea win. Ryan, what are you doing? You can't disrespect Leeds like that. They're a solid team. 4-0, I think it's a bit harsh. I'd agree with maybe a 2-0 or something, because to be fair, I can't see Leeds scoring against that Chelsea back line. It's a very solid unit, and yeah, I think that Chelsea are just going to be better on the day, and Leeds won't be able to do much to stop it. So my prediction is going to be half of the goals Ryan predicted for Chelsea, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chelsea win. I just don't see Leeds getting through that back line. I don't think they're good enough going. They're not good enough going forward to get through that Chelsea back line, and Chelsea, despite maybe not being the best attacking team in the league, have that defence to build up on, and eventually they'll break down Leeds and be able to get 2 goals. But moving on, the next game of the weekend is a pretty interesting one. West Ham versus Brighton. West Ham, obviously very unlucky to not get anything out of the game against Nottingham Forest. They hit the bar a couple times to post. Dean Henderson saved the penalty, so West Ham very unlucky. They do need to get their season off to a start soon though, and that's what Joe's predicted with a 2-0 West Ham win. And I think that could be a bit harsh to Brighton. I see it happening. I think West Ham, I think, is still definitely the better team, but so far Brighton have the better results to prove it, beating United. They draw 0-0 with Newcastle after dominating that game, so they still need someone to put away the chances, which is why I think Joe has gone for the 2-0 win, because I don't think Brighton, without that striker to put it away, will be able to score against West Ham, who are a solid defensive team. And then if I'm looking at this, Tom has predicted a 2-1 West Ham win. Obviously, the Brighton fan, he doesn't think that they'll do that well against West Ham either. Has predicted them to score though, which is slightly better than what Joe predicted, but still 2 goals for West Ham, maybe not fully trusting in that current Brighton back line, which potentially they might need to invest in. However, Ryan, who seems to back Brighton a lot, he obviously predicted them to finish quite high in our predictions video. He's gone for a 2-1 Brighton win, and you can see this happening. Brighton, they're a very good, solid unit. I think that they're a very good team. Potter's got them playing really well. Yeah, and like Trossard, he can get some goals, but I think they still need a striker, so I think scoring 2 is a bit unrealistic. But they also got 2 against United, so you just never know in football. I think for West Ham to concede 2, though, they're a very good, solid team under Moyes, so I'm not sure that's fair to the West Ham team. And to only score 1, they're very unlucky not to have 3 or 4 against Forest, so I think that's a bit harsh on West Ham from Ryan there, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. 2 very exciting teams. I think West Ham can definitely have the ability to win this game. It's just whether they play that well, and I don't think they will. And I think they'll get sloppy at the end of the game after leading from the early stages, and they'll let one slip in from a corner or something at the end, maybe Lewis Dunk for a 1-1 draw in the end. The next game of the weekend is Newcastle versus Man City. Obviously the new oil derby in the world with the Newcastle takeover from the Saudis, and the first one up is Joe with a 3-1 win for Man City predicted. I can see that happening. I think Newcastle did show very good defence against Brighton when they were being dominated, but still held on for a 0-0 draw. However, City are obviously completely different, and eventually they will break down that back line, so 3-1's fair. And obviously they do have some good attacking players like St. Maximin, Wilson, even Guimaraes can get up there, so I think 3-1 is a solid prediction. But Ryan and Tom both agree with a 3-0 City win, and I can also agree with that. I'm not sure Newcastle do have enough going forward to get a goal against City, and obviously City are just a machine with that attacking line. They'll just keep peppering you the whole game, and eventually you will concede. So I do think a 3-0 City win is quite realistic, but I'm going to be a bit more fair to that Newcastle back line. So obviously played very, very well. Nick Pope as well against Brighton was brilliant, and Botman as well was good. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Man City win. I do think that City will eventually overrun them, but Newcastle will hold on for most of the game, and however, they will eventually concede, unfortunately for them. And I think it will end 1-0 to Man City. And they'll continue their very good start to the season. But the next and final game, the big game of this weekend, is Man United versus Liverpool. As a Liverpool fan, I'm hoping we win this, because if we lose or draw, it'll be very disappointing, especially after the Palace and Fulham games. It's really not been a good start for us. United, they're not on the best of form at the moment, but against Liverpool, they might have that drive to show up. So I'm kind of worried, but I think Liverpool is still easily the better team, and they should be able to win. But moving on for the other predictions first, Joe obviously doesn't think that. He's gone for a very entertaining game here, 4-3 to United. I'm not sure where he thinks the goals are going to come from after United's recent performances, and also don't see how he sees Liverpool conceding 3 to that team. Although maybe it is fair, considering that we conceded 3 to both Fulham and Palace total so far, so maybe it's justified, but I think Liverpool conceding 4 isn't realistic, and United's defence only conceding 3 against Diaz, Firmino, Salah isn't realistic either, so I'm not quite convinced by Joe's prediction there. Whether Tom has gone for a 3-1 Liverpool win, and I'd be happy as a Liverpool fan right now. We just don't seem to be able to defend. We're conceding against teams, and the problem is we're not outscoring them. So if we do concede to United, we manage to get 3 goals, though. I'll be more than happy with that. So it shows that we're at least outscoring the goals that we're conceding. And Ryan has gone for a 2-1 Liverpool win as well. Happy that Tom and Ryan are back Liverpool. Obviously, I hope it happens. And definitely not Joe's 4-3. That would be soul crushing. So yeah, 2-1, same reasons as Tom's 3-1 really. Just hope Liverpool can outscore whatever goal they concede. Although I'm going to be slightly more optimistic, because I need Liverpool to keep a clean sheet for once this season. Like, we can't be drawing 2-2 and 1-1 with lower down teams. We need to keep a clean sheet eventually and give confidence to our defence that they can keep clean sheets. So I'm going to pray for a 2-0 Liverpool win against United. I'm just hoping that we don't concede, because conceding against Palace and Fulham and only drawing those games has been very disappointing. It's not a good start to the season. It's not a good enough start to the season for Liverpool. So hoping we can get it off to a better start by beating United and finally getting 3 points on the board. And I'm hoping that Diaz and Firmino will score, because lots of people underrate Firmino now, and I think he's still got the quality, and I'm hoping that United is the game he decides to turn up and hopefully score. And yeah, basically I'm just praying for a Liverpool win. But Joe, 4-3, that is ridiculous. My friend, what drugs have you been taking? Disappointing from Joe that he's predicted that. I was hoping everyone would back Liverpool. Sadly, that's not the case, and that will wrap up this video. Obviously, I've been on holiday, the others have all been busy, so I've had to film this once I got back. It's not the best setup, but had to get the video out for you guys. And yeah, that is it. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, whatever you need to do. Definitely subscribe, and remember, every little helps. Thanks for watching.